If you're a beginner, do you look for light or heavy rehabs? It's a good question. If I'm a complete beginner, says she's 50 doors is a dream. It doesn't have to be a dream. You don't have to dream about this stuff. You just have to take action. One deal at a time, one brick at a time. You will stack your way up there. If you did one deal and learn that process, you would just be doing the same process at a bigger scale. So instead of doing one deal at a time, you can start doing two. Once you get comfortable at two, you can go to four. Then you could go to eight. Once you get to that eight scale, let's say it took you a whole year to get to the scale of eight at once. Well, if you're doing eight a quarter, which is not that heavy, by the way, 8 deals a quarter, I mean, you could do 32 deals that year. This is how in like a couple years you could hit 50 comfortably, because year one, you might do one deal at a time and you got 2, 3 deals done. Then year two, you could do two, then four, then eight. Now you're up to like 22. The third year, you go over 50. You cross over, probably in the first half of the year. So it can definitely happen. It doesn't have to be this dream. My goal was to do 10 deals in 10 years. I did 300 in 5 to 7 because we think linearly. And I ended up scaling the way that I'm telling you guys in 300 in 5 to 7 years. And that was not the goal. That was not like my intended goal when I got started. But you climb a little higher, you see a little further. If you're a beginner, do you look for light or heavy rehabs? I would say look for lighter cosmetic as a beginner. As a beginner, look for something cosmetic, unless you have resources. Like there are people in our Boots on the Ground program, and it's like, well, Brian's team is going to find the properties, rehab them, tenant them, manage them. Like I'm doing all of that heavy lifting for you guys. That's a bit of a different story, because I'm doing all the work, and we can go in and do the full guts and do kind of that heavier lifting, heavy, what I would call like a heavy cosmetic. And there can be a lot more money and value in a heavy cosmetic than in a light cosmetic. A light cosmetic, a deal that looks like very light to you as a new real estate investor, looks light to everyone. So therefore, there's less value. I like the deals that look scary to most people. The deal that scares you, I make more money on, because you'll avoid it. Most people will avoid it. Now I can lowball the seller and get that deal for pennies on the dollar. That's where I come in and make my lion's share, right? Either that or zoning conversions. So there's a little bit of both. But as a new investor, if I was doing my own deal, my first deal with no mentorship, no guidance, I would go as light cosmetic as possible so that my mistakes would be very small and I could learn lessons. If I had mentorship, if I was tapped in and dialed in, I would go a bit heavier so that I could learn more. I would actually do something that I was afraid of so that I could prove to myself that I don't need to be afraid of that moving forward. Because the money, where I'm telling you guys, the money is in the fear. When people are afraid of the deal, that's where the money is. When it's a burnout property, that's what I'm going for. I want that property that looks scary, where there's a hole in the wall, where the roof is blown out, where the back of the house fell out. I'm going to brick it back up, and that's where the money is. But that's from a lot of experience, a lot of knowledge, doing a lot of rehabs, hundreds of gut renovations, having a lot of experience. I'm able to do that. So I wouldn't do that out of nowhere on my very first deal. I would go very cosmetic. Did I follow that advice? No. Kind of. I mean, I did a couple house hacks when I was getting started. But at some point, you got to do your first full gut rehab. And it's always your first beer. I don't recommend doing that without any guidance. I did it without guidance, and I got burned for like 50 grand on that deal. And there are a lot of people who reach out to me in that position. They want to do their first deal. I'm telling them, look, get the knowledge, tap in. They're like, no, I can figure this out. I'm smart. I know they're going to get burned for 40, 50 grand. They're going to learn a tough lesson. But they would rather learn that lesson and tap into mentorship, because they can see the price of mentorship and say, I don't want to pay that. They think they're not going to pay the ignorance tax, but they are. And the ignorance tax is always somewhere between 10 to 100x the cost of mentorship in my experience. I look at my story and say, hey, I lost 50 grand. I was on a podcast. The guy said, look, I lost 250 on my first deal. I was like, wow, maybe I should stop telling my story if you lost a quarter. So it's all relative. But that's what I would say is you're going to pay one way or another. The ignorance tax is usually 10 to 100x. So if I lost 50,000, there are people who lost $250,000. That guy who lost $250,000 could have gotten a mentorship program for probably a couple grand, 2,500, and didn't, thinking he was going to figure it out. Got ripped for $250,000. So he paid 100x the cost of the knowledge. And you just have to decide how penny wise, pound foolish you are. A lot of us are extremely penny wise, pound foolish. But this is not a game that you want to be penny wise, pound foolish in. This is a game where you just want to win and start to get some financial freedom, get out of the 9 to 5, just accomplish your goal. And you have to invest in yourself. A lot of you will stroke a check on going to a college. You'll get $100,000 of student loan debt, but you won't drop a couple grand on mentorship for a game where you could get burned for 100K cash. So you have to pick your poison there and understand that this game it's a serious game. If you win big. You win financial freedom, so you win everything. But you can lose your shirt as well.